This video is about preparing a Beogram 4000 for shipping and about double boxing it. For more information, please visit my blog at beolover.blogspot.com or go to my website at www.beolover.com. Okay, before we get going, there are a couple precautions we need to take, and one is of course to unplug the Beogram. The other item we need to take care of is of course to take out the cartridge and put it in a safe place. A great way to store a cartridge is to use a Beolover MMC box. The cartridge makes a nice press fit, and we also have a cover that holds it securely in place. The next step is to pull the plinth forward to unlock the aluminum panel. Sometimes it can be difficult to move the plinth forward. If that's the case in your Beogram, then it's time to turn it around and have a look at these tabs here. These tabs are meant to lock the plinth in place, but over time they typically wear out. So if they're still in force, you need to push them out with a screwdriver, and then you can push the plinth forward. Now we're ready to take the aluminum panels out. It's typically best to take the small one first and then the big one. And the small one, that simply slides out to the side. So you lift it up here and then you slide it out as seen here. And now we can take the big panel. Now it's time to remove the platter, and for that we need to remove the belt first. And so a good way to do it is to pull the belt off the pulley and then put it on top of the platter here in this location. So you see that here, I'm simply putting it on top of the platter so it still sticks to it and you can lift out the platter. So now that the platter is out, why not pack it? A great way to ship the platter along with the turntable is to put it into a vinyl shipping container, and that's what you see here. I simply place the platter on some bubble wrap and I put the belt here neatly rolled up into a small Ziploc bag. And now we simply fold over the bubble wrap and seal the vinyl shipping container, and then this platter is ready to go. And that's it for the platter and the belt. Okay, now it's time to tighten the transport locks. So there's one here, one up front here, and one over here. And so you tighten them by cranking the screw counterclockwise. And so you can actually see how the sub-chassis is being pulled down as I tighten this lock here. Okay, now it's time to put the aluminum plates back in. And so we put in the big one first, and the important part is that this copper tab is facing towards the small panel that we'll put back in here. And so all you need to do is carefully place it into the right position, and it should just fall into place. So before we put in the small plate, let's have a look at the mechanics. This here is the copper tab that pushes it down and holds it in place. And so there's a little bit of spring force that acts on the small plate. And so the small plate has these protrusions here, and this one needs to slide into this notch that is in this copper tab. And so what you need to do is when you slide the small plate back in, you need to kind of guide it in here and then push it up a little bit against the spring force that's in this copper tab. So you get it high enough that it can slide over the lengthy copper tab that is on the larger plate. It's not seen here because it's hidden by the sensor arm. Okay, let's do it. And so you see here that I first slid it in from the side onto this tab, and now I'm using a finger here to push the small plate up that it goes above the aluminum tab that is mounted on the larger plate. And then you can seat it. So here, wiggling it a little bit, and then it falls into place. Now that the plates are seated, it's time to push the plinth back to lock them in place. And so sometimes this can be a little bit difficult. So what I usually do is I do it one side first and then the other. And It's often good to push the plates down and then carefully try to move it in until the locks catch. And at that point, then one can push it all the way in. So you see that here, I'm kind of pressing it down and then try to push the plinth in. Sometimes one can move it up and down a little bit, and that also helps. And so now it's in. So now that the platter is out and the aluminum plates are in place again, it's time to secure the arms. If you have the original arm support, you can snap it into place like here. This here actually shows a 3D printed replica. The original ones are red or orange. And then after this is in place, I recommend to put some foam around the arms and tape them down. And that's what you see here. I simply use some thin foam and cut it into pieces to support the arms and also put something in between them. And then I put a strip of tape over everything. And I recommend to use 3M blue tape because it's no residue, and so when you remove it after shipping, then there is no glue sticking to the nice aluminum panels. Before you secure the blue tape to the bottom of the enclosure, place a piece of foam here to protect the plinth so we don't get any damage on the veneer. Also, what you get here is a cushion for the hood once it's seated on the plinth during shipping. Once the arms are secured, it's a great idea to also secure the back of the arms because there is the counterweight, so we have a little bit of inertia back here, and it's a great idea to hold this firmly in place while the Beogram is traveling. The next thing to do is put a couple strips of blue tape across the keypads, because these keypads here, they can easily pop out during transport, and then they fly around inside the enclosure and they can create a lot of damage to the aluminum panels, etc. So it's a great idea to put some tape here across them to hold them securely in place, and of course use the foams to protect the veneer. The final strips here go to hold the large aluminum panel in place. So I place one up front here and one in the back here, and then everything is really securely held in place and nothing will move around. Okay, we're almost done. Before we put it into the box, the final step is to fill the space inside the hood with foam to hold the sub-platter down. And so I place a small piece of foam directly onto the sub-platter, and I also poked a hole into it so that the tip of the sub-platter holds the foam in place during shipping. Here you see the second piece of foam that I place on top, so it's cut to size that it exactly fills the space inside the plexiglass hood, and I also cut a notch here that allows space for the arms. So the final step is to put a plastic bag over the hood to protect it from scratches, and then tape it down with a strip of tape against the enclosure of the turntable. Also, what I do is I secure the cords in place with some blue tape. So the next step is to wrap the turntable into bubble wrap or some thin layer of foam. And while we do that, we need to make sure that the cables are not inside this wrapper. The reason for that is to prevent damage to the Beogram by metal parts like these prongs on the power plug. And here we go, bubble wrap and the cables outside. Okay, now it's time to box it up. This here shows the inner box, and I start out by putting a layer of heavy duty foam at the bottom. Then I add the Beogram and I put foam all around it. In the back here we have two foam layers, and that enables me to put those cables in between, and so everything is nicely protected from each other. We finish up by putting an additional layer of heavy-duty foam on top. Now it's time to put the inner box into the outer box. The outer box is heavy-duty, so it's a double layer box, and I also start out by putting some foam at the bottom. And now it's time to put some foam on the outside of the inner box. Let's not forget about the platter and the belt. So I simply put it on top of the inner box, and then I place some foam cut to size around it so it doesn't shift during transport. And then I top it off with a final layer of foam. And now it's time to close this box. And here we go. Time to put on a shipping label. Okay, now you know how to pack a Beogram 4000 for shipping. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.